Hi everyone, I'm Zachary Leung, and today in this video lecture we will be discussing 4 distribution strategies which are commonly used in practice. The first distribution strategy that we will consider is direct shipping. In a direct shipping strategy, the supplier ships goods directly to retail stores, as shown in the figure here. Companies often use a direct shipping strategy for perishable products, such as fresh produce and baked goods, in order to minimize the rate of spoilage. Let's consider a direct shipping example of Maxim's cakes. The Maxim Group operates a central bakery factory in Tai Po, where it produces breads and cakes. Because baked goods such as breads and cakes have a fairly short shelf life of about 1 to 2 days. Therefore, once the cakes and breads are made, they are very quickly shipped directly from the central bakery to retail stores across Hong Kong. Let's look at the pros and cons of a direct shipping strategy. The main advantage is the short transportation lead time from the supplier to the stores, since products do not spend any time being stored in an intermediate location. Another advantage is that there are no costs associated with maintaining a warehouse, since there's no warehouse. The main disadvantage of a direct shipping strategy is that it could lead to high transportation costs due to the fact that the supply chain may need to make a very large number of small shipments. At this point, let's take a short detour to discuss economies of scale in transportation. What economies of scale refers to is that as the number of units shipped increases, the cost per unit shipped decreases. In real life, this of course continues up to some limits. It can't continue forever. Anyhow, let's look at 2 examples of economies of scale in action. The first example is that it is usually cheaper to take the bus than it is to take a taxi. And the main reason for this is that the main cost of a bus or a taxi is actually the labor cost of employing the driver. And a single driver in a double-decker bus can carry a lot of passengers, maybe 80 to 100, whereas a taxi can only carry 4 to 5 passengers. The second example is from the context of trucking. So if you ship an entire semi-trailer, as shown in the bottom right here, it is usually cheaper per unit than if you're just shipping a few boxes. Shipping less than an entire truckload, such as a few boxes, is known in the logistics industry as less than truckload shipping. The key takeaway from this slide is that it is usually cheaper to make a few large shipments than it is to make many small shipments. The second distribution strategy that we'll consider is traditional warehousing. Under a traditional warehousing strategy, a supplier does not ship goods directly to retail stores. Instead, a supplier ships goods to the warehouse, and the warehouse will ship goods to retail stores. To motivate why companies use a traditional warehousing strategy, let's consider a hypothetical example of a supermarket chain which has 5 suppliers and 5 stores. To keep things simple, let's assume that every week each store needs to receive a shipment from each supplier. Under a direct shipping strategy, as shown on the left, each supplier needs to make a shipment to each store. Therefore, we have the supply chain needs to make 5 times 5, which is equal to 25 small shipments of small quantities. However, under a traditional warehousing strategy shown on the right, each supplier needs to make a weekly delivery to just one location, which is the warehouse, and the warehouse also consolidates the goods from the various suppliers and also only needs to make a single weekly delivery to each store. Therefore, in this strategy, the supply chain only needs to make 5 plus 5 equals to 10 larger shipments. And as we mentioned in the previous slide, making fewer large deliveries allows the supply chain to reduce its transportation costs compared to making many smaller shipments. As an example of a company which uses a traditional warehousing strategy, we have ParkShop. I'm not going to go through the details of this slide, but the main point is that ParkShop can save transportation costs by receiving large shipping containers of diapers compared to the stores receiving individual smaller boxes of diapers. Let's look at the pros and cons of a traditional warehousing strategy. So in the previous slides, we explained how traditional warehousing can benefit from lower transportation costs because it consolidates many smaller shipments into fewer larger shipments. In addition, the traditional warehousing strategy enjoys shorter lead times to replenish the retail stores, and this is because you can locate the warehouse closer to the stores than the supplier's facilities. In addition, shorter lead times allow the retail stores to have lower inventory levels and less inventory costs. However, when you are operating a warehouse, you have to, it's not free. You have to pay the expenses of operating the warehouse. The third distribution strategy which we'll consider is cross-docking. Now, cross-docking has some similarities with warehousing, but the key differences are that the cross-docking facility is not used as a storage location. So every incoming shipment to the cross-dock has an intended destination. So once the goods come into the cross-dock, they're quickly screened and sorted and packed onto the correct outbound truck for the intended destination. And because of this, the inbound to outbound time, the time that the goods spend in the cross-dock is usually very short, around usually a few hours and usually not more than 12 hours. As an example of a company which uses cross-docking, Walmart is perhaps the most famous example because cross-docking was popularized by Walmart. In Hong Kong, I don't think there is a Walmart store, but Walmart is very big in the US and in many other countries. In fact, Walmart is the world's largest company by revenue, earning more than 500 billion, not earning, but with a revenue of more than $500 billion in 2018. In the 80s and 90s, Walmart was a leader in supply chain management, and one of the key factors was the use of cross-docking. By having the lowest supply chain costs in the business, they were able to also have the lowest price in the stores. And this picture shows a very long-shaped cross-docking facility, which allows for the goods to be moved very quickly from the inbound to the outbound trucks. An analogy which I like to use to explain cross-docking is the Hong Kong airport, transiting in the Hong Kong airport. So at the Hong Kong airport, many people who want to fly from Europe to Australia using CATHAY will have to fly through Hong Kong, the Hong Kong airport, because the Hong Kong airport is Cathay Pacific's hub. So if they're flying with CATHAY, these passengers will typically arrive in the Hong Kong airport, spend a few hours to transit through, and then board their flights to Australia. Usually when you buy a ticket from CATHAY from, say, London to Sydney, you would be buying it as a single itinerary. So you won't buy two separate tickets, and you won't spend a lot of time waiting in the Hong Kong airport because they scheduled the flights such that you usually only have to wait a few hours. Let's look at the pros and cons of cross-docking strategy. So cross-docking is able to achieve very fast lead times from the supplier to the stores, almost as fast as the direct shipping strategy. In addition, cross-docking is able to achieve similar transportation costs as to the traditional warehousing because they can consolidate smaller shipments into larger shipments to the cross-dock. One advantage that cross-docking has over traditional warehousing is the reduced inventory holding costs, since the goods do not spend a lot of time in the cross-dock. They just quickly transit through. However, the main problem or difficulty with cross-docking is that it is hard to execute correctly because the inbound trucks and the outbound trucks have to arrive right on schedule, just like what's the sport of synchronized swimming, where everyone has to work together to make things work smoothly. So first, the suppliers and the stores, they have to link their communication with an advanced information system to communicate inventory levels and demand information. And also the transportation system must be fast and reliable so that everything runs smoothly. The fourth and last distribution strategy which we'll consider is retail transshipment. Basically, you ship a product from one retail store to another retail store. For example, a few years ago, I went to buy a laptop from the Fortress store at Festival Walk. But unfortunately, the laptop was not in stock at the Festival Walk store. But no worry, the Festival Walk store employee told me that they could get the laptop shipped to the Festival Walk store from another store. They didn't tell me which one it was, but let's say it's the Kowloon City Plaza store. So I just needed to come back a few days later to pick up the laptop. So basically, you can use a retail transshipment strategy to satisfy demand at one store using inventory from another store. And this is what is called inventory pooling. By using inventory pooling, the retail transshipment strategy can reduce inventory levels. However, as I mentioned, it requires an advanced information system because you need to be able to check the inventory levels at every other store to find the products that are stocked out in your own store. And it also causes a little bit more trouble for the customer, either to come back or perhaps for the company because they have to ship products to the consumers. Alright, so that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about distribution strategies. See you again soon.